Hey, soul seekers, it is intuitive energy guide, clairvoyant, and source energy channel Cathy Weiss here. I am coming to you live from my reading room here on the central coast of California. Welcome to your weekly energy reading and healing messages. Guys, there is so much that we need to talk about today, and it's all in our collective energy, especially in the northern hemisphere. I am sure that the southern hemisphere is picking up some of what's happening right now as well, in probably a slightly more subtle way. But as I get into things today, if you have questions or comments or want to join the conversation, please pop them down here so that we can really make sure things are clear this week. And I was a little bit torn today about where to start. I do want to address the collective energy, which is sort of moving in towards grumpy and irritable and annoyed and quick to anger, sort of a hot and bothered kind of situation. And I'm going to address that in just a moment. I'm going to preface it with a story that some of you may have heard today, maybe not. It's a news story that there was unfortunately a shooting in Gilroy, California. And I am on the central coast of California. So Gilroy is about slightly more than 2 hour drive away from me. And so this energy is hitting number one very close to home, and I could feel in the collective energy of the community here that I live in and sort of the surrounding communities was this little bubble that popped, or like a balloon that popped, where we sort of shifted away from, I wonder if something like this would ever happen in our community, to when is it going to happen? So we had this huge shift of not if anymore, but when. And that's going to, number one, trigger a lot of fear. And I will be addressing fear today as well. But what was interesting, so guys, I don't read a lot of news stories because as a highly sensitive, it can get like way super heavy. And so even around this particular news story, I just read enough to understand what had happened and where. But in that little snippet that I read, this is hearsay, don't know how much of it is true, but it makes a lot of sense that where it happened was next to a stage where a band was performing, and that one of the band members asked the perpetrator why he was doing it, and he said, "Because I'm so angry." And this just makes sense because collectively in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving into a season called Pitta, where there are three energetic seasons as compared to four calendar seasons. And it took a long time this year to get into Pitta. It often comes in like early-ish summer, but it took a little bit longer this year. But one of the things that happens in the Pitta season is that as the energy builds, we can feel angry and irritable and irrational and this desire to lash out. And that example in Gilroy, California was like a huge example of it. Most of us are going to be feeling it in smaller, softer, more subtle ways, but still could potentially be wanting to lash out at the people or just like slam doors and stomp our feet and all those kinds of things. So know that this week, number one, if you are feeling that way, it's pretty normal and right on target for where we are in this seasonal energy. And there are a few things you can do to sort of soften that within yourself. You'll see in front of me, I have a nice big ball of amethyst, and I chose it for the color. And for some reason today, guys, the lighting in here is really yellow. I don't even know why. So you might need to like check out pictures of amethyst, or if you have some. Denise, you can't stop crying today. You have no idea why. I'll get into that, okay, in just a second. So, light colors that are cooling, the light purple of amethyst. This is something called blue calcite. Again, the lighting in my room today is not flattering it, but it's a lighter shade of blue. So one simple thing you can do if you have crystals is bring out your cooling colored crystals. You can wear cooling colors, shades of blue, even a little bit lighter than this, I would recommend aquamarine and turquoise, lighter purples, um, gemstones. We've got also opal, which is a kind of a calming, cooling color. Food-wise, guys, eat cooling foods, drink cooling drinks. Like leave your hot coffee and your hot tea at home and or drink like iced, okay? But everything that's like cooling and calming, chill out, take cool showers. If you can float in a pool or a river or a lake that's cool, those types of things. Like just think, what can I do to cool my physical body? What can I do to cool the imagery coming into my body? What can I do to cool my mind? And that's going to help. So with all of the crying, Denise, you're probably feeling this buildup of fear and anger, and it's wanting to release out through your eyeballs, which is like totally great. Guys, I have no problem with crying because it does release stress hormones. It does relieve the high emotions and bring you back down. So even though it can be annoying, Denise, sometimes when you're in that, like, I just can't stop crying, go ahead and let it all flow out. I like to say cry until you've cried your very last tear because it's also very cleansing and washing. So with this like heightened pitta energy, this like irritable, angry, I want to lash out, I want to cry, whatever it is, there's also this current of fear underneath it. Like I said, in my community and in surrounding communities, there's not a lot we can do about this, but we switched from the if is something is going to happen to when is something going to happen. And deep down inside, there's a lot of fear around that. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about what we can do to relieve the fear underneath all of those emotions. Okay, so I have a channeled message for you, and I'm going to drop into that in just a second. But this morning, when I heard the news about that shooting, and yeah, absolutely, Denise, my pleasure to help you understand that. But guys, when I was like thinking about this shooting that happened and why and how I could address you, what I heard was two things. Number one, it is written. And that meant that the message that needed to be communicated to you was already written down. And number two, what I heard is it's being orchestrated. It's all being orchestrated. And so in these difficult, confusing, frustrating times, we have to have faith that things are being orchestrated in our favor. From these horrible situations, new advocates are being born, new people who are going to be social change makers. New healers are emerging and rising from these situations that wouldn't have had it not occurred. There is a blossoming and an uprising of more people doing good in the world as a response. So that social change, that healing, that advocating for a world that is more peaceful and loving, all of that is arising from this, and we have to trust that it's orchestrated in our favor. And one thing to remember is not only are we connected to source energy because we are source energy is connected to us, and our guides, they like know the pain, they know the frustration, they understand and feel it. And so the level of love is amplified down to us in these times. So if you can choose to like tap into the amplification of love, that will help you heal. And so what I heard, and I didn't use my adult language card today, so I will modify a little bit, but it's like just effing hug somebody. We're all hurting in some way. We're all angry. We're all frustrated. And so instead, can you just hug someone? Even if you don't understand them, even if you disagree, even if you think they're like way off the mark, we need more connection here. And so it's like reach out and hug someone, reach out and touch them physically, let them feel love flowing through you. And if you can't be in a physical space with someone and you're using a digital method of communication, just say, I love you. Okay, so let's get into the channeled message. And it's so interesting, guys, because this message was written down on July 15th, so about 2 weeks ago. Um, and it's always really interesting to me how it's like, again, when we talk about the universe orchestrating things, that everything that ever is and will be, it's very confusing to our human minds. But basically, like, let's just say the universe knew this was going to go down and that this is what people needed to hear today. And it was written and prepared in advance. Okay, so here's what it says. And bear with me though. So if you guys have never seen, these are my messages, a book 2 of the messages for this year. And I write them down as they arrive and deliver them when they're meant to be delivered. And I apologize because this one is like super messy. It was coming really fast. So I might stumble a little bit here and there, but know that there's a lot of good stuff in here specifically for today. It says, we communicate this message to you. Fear is an imperative through line. So all through this message, guys, know that they're addressing fear. It says you must cast away all self-doubt and go boldly in the direction of your heart, of your heart. What don't you love? What doesn't feel right? What calls you by name? It does it matter? Yes. Yes, it matters, guys. For all things must call to you and speak to your heart. Now the answer is clear. You can begin to move forward in confidence and solidarity of action. This is a time of creation and courage. Meet your needs. That's all you ever must do. Are we clear? So in this time, I'm just going to use again this shooting that happened as an example. Some of us are going to feel called to activism and some of us aren't, and there's no reason to feel guilty about that. Some of us are going to be called to be healers, and some of us are going to be called to parent our children in a more effective manner. It doesn't matter. What you have to do is go where your heart calls you. And the other piece is, for healers specifically, you can't heal in another what you haven't healed yet in yourself. So if you're feeling called to heal the anger in the world, you need to make sure your own anger is healed first. If you're being called to teach people techniques and methodologies, you need to have understood and consumed and mastered them yourself first. And so just know that if you're struggling with anger and frustration and irritability and you don't know how to take care of that in yourself, don't even start to think about how you're going to do it for someone else. Your heart first. Just keep coming back here. What do I need? What do I need? What calls me forward? And the answers will be revealed. And if you don't know how to do that, or you feel like, yeah, Kathy, I am trying and it is not happening, that's when you're going to hook up with me and we're going to have a one-on-one session, or most likely a series of sessions, because guys, healing and transformation and then being able to do good in the world from it takes time, right? So yeah, if you're feeling stuck or confused or uncertain, you can comment here. You can visit my website, which is cathy-weiss.com, and set yourself up for some sessions over there with me. So what we're going to do to wrap up, guys, is I'm going to pull an oracle card, and I chose today Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Dr. Christiane Northrup. I chose it because it's a really soft, gentle, loving deck. And that's the energy that most of us are needing to feel and infuse and reconnect to right now. And remember that the cards are not fortune tellers. The cards are here to help us tap deeper into our own wisdom, or to start to think about situations in a little bit of a different way than maybe we have been. And so let's just see how the card is that I select is going to support us today. Here it is. I've been shuffling a whole bunch, waiting for it to speak to me. Here's the card for today. So this card says fertility and creativity, risk versus safety. How interesting is it that that's what came up, risk versus safety? Because anger and irritability and frustration, the underlying principle with those is fear that our needs aren't being met. Right? Just like think about that when you're irritable or you're frustrated or you're angry, it's because some need isn't being met. You aren't being heard, your time isn't being valued, things are not happening in the order you perceive that they should be happening. Whatever it is, you have an internal need or concern that isn't being fulfilled. Think about a really irritable baby that needs to take a nap, right? The need that's not being fulfilled is the need for sleep, and that's why they get super irritable. So, in this idea of risk versus safety, um, we're really looking at, oh, hang on, where did it go? Give me 1 second, guys. This deck is not quite ordered the same way as other decks, and so I always have to like go back and double check where the cards are. There she is. So, let's see what the guidebook says, and then we'll wrap up today. It says, creating something new and putting it out in the world always involves taking a risk. A baby may not be perfect. The world may not embrace your creation. Someone may criticize your work. This is where the fear comes in, right? You may not be a perfect parent. Keep your new creations safe and protected, and when it's time, risk letting them go. So this is a much more about creating things in the world. And again, things that are created in the world they rise up from these outside situations that are orchestrated in our favor to call forth that which is within us, or to call forth our life's purpose, or to call forth just what we're meant to be doing in this exact moment. And there is some risk involved. And so if we go back into the message for one last second here, it says, all things must call to you and speak to your heart. So the things that are calling to you and speaking to your heart, you do have to override the through line of fear in order to create them. And this is like a way super generalized message for everyone. And I'm hearing that a couple of you need specifics. You really need to know the specific thing in your life. Maybe you're uncertain about that. And again, that's where working one-on-one with me can help you find that clarity and that confidence to listen to and follow your heart. And a really simple, easy way to get started is, if you haven't yet, to subscribe to my newsletter. And as a sweet bonus, you get a free mini intuitive reading, and that's at Cathy-Weiss.com. Or if you've done that and you're ready to dive deeper, then let's dive deeper into an alignment series of sessions, or even a clarity one-on-one session to get you living from your heart. The thing that is going to heal the world from the anger and the frustration and the violence is each of us individually following the call that's in our heart. And I am here to guide and help you if you need that help. Today's message is complete. I love you guys so much. Hang in there, stay cool, and I will see you next week for next week's weekly energy reading. I love you guys so much. Namaste. Bye, everybody. Bye.